All right, friends, it's time to give you loyal listeners a discount on protein powder. You may or may not know, but I launched my very first protein powder 2 years ago. It's a grass-fed beef isolate with only 3 ingredients: grass-fed beef, either organic cacao or organic vanilla, and organic monk fruit. Now, if you don't want any of the added flavor and sweeteners, you can also just get unflavored. And no matter what flavor you choose, you're getting over 23 grams of protein per scoop, which is going to keep you full and satisfied between meals. I love starting my day with a Fab4 smoothie and breaking my fast with that much protein. It makes a serious difference in my cravings and blood sugar balance the rest of the day, and I've seen it with my clients as well. Now, I never thought I'd own a product company, but when I got pregnant with Sebastian, I realized the majority of protein powders were chemically extracted or enzymatically extracted, and I wanted to use heat and water only. I wanted minimal ingredients because we don't need those emulsifiers, fillers, or added vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. All of those additions increase the chances that it's not going to work for your body, whether it be bloating, digestion issues. I just wanted pure, clean protein to keep you full and satisfied so you could build the most delicious Fab4 smoothie. And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the flavor. If you take a look at our reviews on Amazon, you'll see 5-star reviews for flavor. And that is key, because if you don't love your Fab4 smoothie and you don't love drinking your protein powder, you're not going to do it. It won't become a habit, and it's consistency that outpaces everything. So if you're here and you're listening and you want to give our protein powder a try, use the code PODCAST5 for $5 off your order. And let me know if you love it. My favorite ways to apply this protein powder is in my Fab4 smoothie, making freezer fudge, making chocolate milk, making hot chocolate, and throwing the unflavored into all my kids' baked goods. So let me know how you use it. Let me know if you love it, and share this podcast deal with your friends. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to be back in 2021 with a new season of the Be Well by Kelly podcast. I'm going to continue to bring you some of my favorite people, from wellness experts to friends. Don't forget, Wednesdays is Wellness Wednesdays, and Fridays are Fabulous Friend Fridays, where I bring in entrepreneurs, friends of mine, people I look up to in the industry and beyond. So just to keep you guys up to speed on how we are organizing the podcast here at Be Well by Kelly. Also, just to bring you up to speed, if you didn't hear, last year, I launched not only a protein powder that is a grass-fed beef isolate, which is a chemical-free extraction of a complete protein with all the collagen amino acids that you would get without the chemicals. 3 simple ingredients: the protein, an organic flavor like organic vanilla bean or organic cacao, and organic monk fruit. So really easy to digest, egg-free, sugar-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, keto, paleo, you name it. I just wanted something that I felt comfortable drinking while I was pregnant and breastfeeding, something that I felt comfortable feeding to my family and Sebastian. And I'm so happy that it launched last year. Another announcement, I did launch 2 courses last year. I launched the Fab4 Fundamentals, which goes through the science of my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day, and Fab4 Pregnancy, which I was so excited to share with you guys, all about balancing your blood sugar with the Fab4 while you're pregnant to eliminate cravings, to feel your best, to stay energized, but most importantly, to get you and baby exactly what you need. It focuses on nutrient density. And we go through some of the issues that we all have during pregnancy, food aversions, and learning ways to get back out there and get moving again. So hopefully you guys, if you're in that season of life, have found those courses helpful to you personally, and looking forward to a fun 2021. I am in the process of writing my Fab4 Under 4 or Fab4 Kids. I'm not sure what I'll call this course, but this will be a kids nutrition course all about how I feed my boys and balance their blood sugar so that they can understand their own hunger cues and learn to eat a variety of foods. So it will include all the newest research when it comes to preferences for kids under 4. And so I'm so excited about that. I'm diving into that on maternity leave right now. It's the fun things that I find myself down rabbit holes with. But yeah, so anyways, that's just the update for now. I am also super excited about today's guest. Brooke Boskovich is a registered dietitian. She is the fertility dietitian, and she focuses on functional nutrition, specializes in digestive wellness, hormonal balance, and fertility. And she offers a few fertility programs online where she helps people reclaim their fertility, and that program is called the Foundations for Optimizing Fertility, and you can book also one-on-ones with her. Definitely head to the website and check out Brooke. It's brookbnutrition.com. And our talk today is just super informative for those of you looking to optimize your fertility and welcome a bundle of joy into your life as well. So let's get to the show. I'm so excited to have Brooke on the podcast. She is a great person to follow, super inclusive, and always sharing research-backed science around fertility. So definitely check her out on the gram and tune in now. Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is someone I've been looking forward to having on the show for quite a while. She was recently out on maternity leave, so I'm so excited to snag her before I go out on my own maternity leave. But today's guest is Brooke Boskovich. She's a licensed and registered dietitian and goes by the Fertility Dietitian on Instagram. In today's episode, we are going to dive deep into the impact of nutrition on fertility, preconception health, egg and sperm quality, and the role gut health plays in all of it. So Brooke, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. I'm super excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you. So how has maternity leave and being a mom to a little 7-week-old girl been?
Oh, it's been amazing. It's definitely a new challenge as I am becoming a new, just coming into my new role, I guess, as a mom. But I mean, we love her so much, and it's so fun seeing her grow and change every day. It's definitely given me a new motivation to help my clients through their own fertility journeys so they can experience the joy of having a tiny human in their lives as well.
I love that. Yeah, no, there's nothing like that passion that comes from like seeing these little faces and how amazing and life-changing they can be in your family unit and just for your extended family and for everyone involved in just getting the chance to get to know them. And they grow so fast in the very beginning, and just take as many pictures as humanly possible because it's amazing how quick it goes. But I'm just so happy for you. And I'm really am so thankful that you've taken the time to be on the show today. So let's get into some of the juicy details. Obviously, you're passionate about helping people make tiny humans. So let's start with that. What are some of the barriers to having optimal fertility?
Good question. So some of the biggest barriers I see with my clients in my practice include poor gut health. That's probably one of the biggest ones that isn't really addressed by conventional medicine at all, but is a big barrier that leads to all sorts of other barriers like hormone imbalance, irregular ovulation, therefore irregular cycles. Thyroid imbalance is very connected to gut health as well. And then a little bit more of the lifestyle barriers that include stress. Stress is huge, and that can be seen in a few different ways. Not only the stress that we think of like work stress or, road rage stress or relationship stress. Those are all playing into it, but also stress of not eating enough is something huge that I see as a barrier to fertility, both influencing gut health again, but also egg quality and hormone balance, which, as we know, are really big players in fertility.
Definitely. Well, let's dive deeper into gut health. What are some of the things you see in gut health that specifically can decrease, how fertile we are?
Definitely. So the imbalance of bacteria in our gut plays a really big role. One specific infection, if you will, H. pylori. A large portion of our population has this, but when H. pylori is present, it has been shown to influence fertility directly. There's quite a few research studies on H. pylori specifically influencing fertility. H. pylori infection in the gut. Somehow, it's not really clear why, but they know when it's present, it does lead to things like iron deficiency and thyroid imbalance. It actually creates antibodies for sperm. So if a woman has H. pylori infection in her gut, she's also creating antibodies that attack sperm, which make it pretty challenging to get pregnant. And then if a male has H. pylori, it also influences his sperm quality as well, both count and morphology. So pretty interesting there for just one strand of bacteria in your gut. But overall, we're looking at gut health also for digestion and absorption of nutrients, because if those nutrients can't be absorbed, we can't use them for things like egg quality or sperm quality. So the whole quality of the egg and or sperm is influenced in a negative way, making it harder for us to get pregnant or carry to term.
Definitely. Are there any symptoms that someone might experience if they're having if they have H. pylori overgrowth?
The biggest symptom with H. pylori specifically tends to be heartburn.
Yeah. Acid reflux, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where you're like, is it an H. pylori infection? Do you have low acid, or are you allergic to something? What's going on here? That's interesting. I hadn't heard that H. pylori has an effect on fertility, and that having that an overgrowth of H. pylori basically creates your own spermicide, which is insane.
Yeah. It's crazy. That's where testing comes in for sure. Because if you are having something like acid reflux and you're not sure why, the testing can go a really long ways.
What's your favorite diagnostic test for H. pylori?
It's called a GI map. So it doesn't only look at H. pylori, but H. pylori is one of the strands of bacteria in there. It actually looks at pathogens, so infections like viral infections, bacterial infections, even parasites and worms and things like that. And then more overall like bacterial balance. So looking at the normal bacteria as well as the opportunistic bacteria. The opportunistic bacteria is often what we refer to as the bad guys, but really just overall bacterial balance. It gives us a good picture of inflammation in the gut, as well as how you're using the nutrients that you eat, or not using them. And it even gives us a good picture of immune health too. So our immune system, our gut plays a big role in our immune system too, which also plays a really big role in fertility.
So if you get your GI maps, diagnostic testing results for a client, and you see dysbiosis and you see opportunistic bacterial overgrowth, what are some recommendations that you make to kind of bring the gut back into balance so that the body is best prepared for baby?
Yeah, so I'm always focused on food first, but when there's really severe dysbiosis, we bring supplements into play. So depending on what kind of dysbiosis there is, we introduce things called antimicrobials. So herbal supplements, things like oil of oregano and berberine are pretty big ones that I use in my practice. And then of course, prebiotics and probiotics. We're very focused on food first there as well, just because the diversity of pre and probiotics is much bigger in food first. But as we're doing what I call a gut protocol and getting things like fast tracked, if you will, back on track, we do use supplements there too, and then kind of try to maintain by diet and foods. That we focus on are definitely our plant-based foods. So lots of fiber, which I know you talk a lot about in your books too. But definitely those leafy greens, beans, seeds, all fibers from those types of foods. And then, of course, we look at lifestyle too. So lifestyle actually plays a pretty big role in bacterial balance as well. And what I mean by lifestyle are things like sleep quality and stress management. So it's all very interconnected. It's a very holistic protocol when we're addressing the gut, both for getting things back on track and maintenance. So it's definitely a lifestyle change.
I love that so much. I love that you're touching on the fact that lifestyle can impact a gut. Can you give us some examples of where we might see that happen and how our lifestyle choices can influence our microbiome?
Yeah. So the first one that pops into my head. So I have had quite a few clients that have had this in their lives. So it's very top of mind for me, but sleeping with your pets is actually a big one. So when you're letting your pets not only like be in your bed, it's affecting your microbiome if you're letting them kiss your face. It's affecting your own bacterial balance. So it's kind of crazy, but if there's extreme dysbiosis, we have to make changes there. And can be a pretty big lifestyle change for people if they're used to having their pets like in their bed and very like loving and close with them. But that's typically one that has to be made for long-term rebalancing a positive microbiome in their body. Stress is huge. So stress creates inflammation in the body. It kind of feeds bad or opportunistic bacteria in a way, which anytime we have an overgrowth of that opportunistic bacteria, it then hinders the normal bacteria balance in our body and our gut, which then just creates more inflammation and barriers for nutrition absorption and making sure that we're using the nutrients we need to support fertility. So stress management is always a huge part of what I work on with clients. And that always involves good sleep quality. So you can see, again, very, very connected here. But sleep quality goes above and beyond the number of hours, obviously the quantity of sleep that we get, which is kind of the starting point. We try to get that 7 to 9 hours. And then we talk about, how can we get that deep, restful sleep? So you're actually waking up feeling rested, because that will have plays a big role in our bacterial balance as well. So well as our food choices that we're going to be making the next day. If we're just tired and strung out and stressed all the time, our food choices are going to reflect that.
Absolutely. Your raging hunger hormones and like zero connection or even like awareness that leptin's even happening to like hit our brain. We're like, what? Nope, croissant, please, thanks. Yeah, food quality goes down, definitely. Speaking of food, what are some of your food recommendations when it comes to increasing gut health? Specifically, you talked about seeds, you talked about beans, you talked about fiber, rich veggies, and leafy greens. Do you have any specific nutrients that are needed to actually increase fertility?
Yes. So my favorite nutrients for fertility are folate, B6, B12, and choline. Those are probably the top nutrients. And the foods that we get those in, folate is, you can kind of think of the foliage type foods. So definitely our leafy greens, Brussels sprouts, even broccoli are good for folate. B6 is highest sources of B6 include things like poultry and tuna and salmon, or fish in general. B12 sources include things like liver, eggs, beef, are definitely animal foods there mostly. And then choline. So the richest sources of choline include eggs and liver again. So I know that's not really a crowd favorite often, or people are kind of intimidated by liver. But if you haven't tried it, I encourage you to seek out a well-sourced organ meat. Beef liver is great. Pate is a pretty easy way to introduce it into your diet. And hidden liver is okay. You can hide it in like meatloaf and meatballs and soups and chilies, but it's definitely one of the most nutrient dense foods with all of those nutrients in it. Well, minus folate's not really rich in liver, but if you have liver and leafy greens, you're kind of going to hit all of those favorite fertility nutrients.
I love it. I think the only way I can get liver down Chris's throat over here is through hidden liver or desiccated liver. And I'm like, this is your multivitamin. It's like, okay, what am I taking? Shh, it's liver. No, it's really interesting that you bring that up. And it's also informative for anyone listening that the nutrient density you're talking about in these foods are coming from a lot of animal foods. And, from your B6 to your B12 to your choline, not only is that like important for mitochondrial health, but it's also important for cognitive development in our baby once we do get pregnant. And so it's interesting that you bring those up. For me, I'm curious what your thoughts are then on a plant-based fertility program.
Yeah, good question. So I have worked with clients that are vegan. And I always, before anybody becomes a client with me, I have a phone conversation with them to make sure that they're a good fit. And if they are vegan, we talk about why they're vegan. And then we talk about testing and, if they're open to introducing animal products in any form into their diet. If they are not open to it at all, but they're open to the testing, that we have a conversation once the testing comes back. We should probably back up. Oftentimes when we do the testing, there are big red flags of deficiency in pretty big areas. Definitely the B12 area, the choline area, that are kind of deal breakers for a vegan diet because you cannot out supplement them. Research shows that if we are deficient in B12 preconception, there's irreversible developmental issues that occur during pregnancy. So B12 is actually part of the nutrient trifecta that we need to close the neural tube. So that folate is often what we talk about when we talk about neurological development during those first 4 to 6 weeks. But B6 and choline both play a really big role in that as well. So if somebody's on a plant-based diet and we can't get the levels up with supplementation alone, we talk about introducing eggs or dairy first. Those can be easier. And then seafood. It can also be one, shellfish specifically, because there's some people feel more comfortable depending on the reasons that they were vegan initially introducing shellfish just because it doesn't really have a spine. And then fish and so forth. So we try to work it in. I have had one client on a plant-based diet that her labs have come back beautifully. And so we have not introduced animal products. And she is like super unique. I just have to say that I do not recommend a whole, a solely plant-based diet in general, because the broad general population does not thrive. Their fertility does not thrive off of only plant foods. Plant foods are so important for everybody, and we should be eating lots of them, but it doesn't mean we have to completely eliminate all animal products, including those are really, really helpful for optimal fertility. So I feel like I kind of rambled, but hopefully I answered.
No, you definitely answered my question. And I think it's important for people to know, because you run a clinical practice and you see clients and you see their labs, and it isn't how you feel. It isn't just like standing up here and saying like, I'm plant-based or I'm paleo or I'm keto and everyone needs to do this because this is my experience. You're saying I'm seeing all of these women and I'm helping these women get pregnant. And I've had my own issues with fertility in the past, and I've dove into the research, and this is what I'm seeing. And this is what I'm seeing come back on labs. And I think that's what's eye-opening for people, is when they start to really understand the nutrient density of, say, choline in a plant-based diet. If you are fully vegan, where are you getting that from? And making mention that like there are irreversible issues if we have certain deficiencies prior to conception. And most of us, I've talked about this on the podcast with other people. There are definitely people out there who are getting pregnant and not planning to be pregnant. And, it's oopsie, I'm pregnant. And you have that neural tube development and you have that like very finite amount of time when your baby is developing and your body's nutrient status could be, not optimal. And so I agree with you. I've had, when I launched my pregnancy course, I was in awe of the nutrient density that I saw in animal foods. Like I'm a Fab4 girl. I love fiber and greens, but I did have a moment where I was like, shoot, if we're talking about pregnancy or we're talking about fertility, like we need to lean hard into this protein piece because it's just so much more efficient at getting the job done. But I love that you bring up the fact that you do have a client that was plant-based and she had beautiful labs. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road, right? It's like just being responsible. Like if you are all in on plant-based, like please just be responsible because we're now not just talking about your body. We're talking about your child's future, their cognitive development, like their metabolic health, so many different factors, right? So now I'm rambling.
Just shows you're passionate about the topic, right?
Yeah, no, I just like you. I mean, these babies are just life-changing and you just want to give them your whole world and you want to set them up for the best success possible. And speaking of that, it starts with the egg and the sperm. So let's go there. What can we do? What can our partners or hubbies or sperm donors do to make sure that we are making magic?
Yeah. So male fertility is huge. It's of course 50% of the DNA. And if your partner or however you're getting the sperm is not, part of the lifestyle change, nutrition and lifestyle change, you're really missing out. It doesn't mean you won't be able to get pregnant, but again, like we're talking about programming that DNA that is going to be your future tiny human, and that impacts the lifelong health of that future tiny human. So get him on board. Some of the big things that he can do, is really just join you in the nutrition and lifestyle change. It's really very similar nutrition and nutrient dense diet. We're talking a lot of plants. We're talking including those nutrient rich animal proteins. Get him on board the liver if you can. Give him the desiccated supplement. If not, it's totally fine. But also some big factors that I see in men is stress. They're often, for whatever reason, I feel like the male partner of the clients that I have even more stress than the female. So helping them join you on the stress management journey. I've had couples that do deep breathing or yoga series together before bed. So it's also can be like kind of bonding, limiting screen time, also going to help support that sleep quality, and limiting alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco. So those are biggies for sperm. We know that if we're drinking a lot nightly, that's a big factor. Smoking even the occasional joint can impact sperm quality in multiple ways. And then, yeah, definitely tobacco products. So whether you're chewing or smoking cigarettes. So I know we feel like a lot of people aren't smoking anymore, but even the occasional smoke can impact your sperm quality. And something I want to mention is that the whole maturation of the sperm takes roughly 70 days. So the maturation of an egg takes 3 to 4 months. So it's really generally the same time frame. So if you guys are if the female is going to make the changes, get him on board to make them with you because that time frame is helpful for both of you.
I think that's a great time frame and something that I've heard. I feel like it's time and time again, but just looking at that period of time and knowing, yeah, we have these oopsie pregnancies, but if you are planning to get pregnant, which I feel like so many people are also very proactive in planning their life, when they're going to start their career, how they're going to change their career, then who they're going to marry, then when they're getting married. I mean, COVID, 2020 has totally blown that up, but
outside of that, it's pretty like planned out for our generation, I think more than, our parents or our grandparents' generation that was just like, get married, have babies. What are you talking about? Like, put career first or whatever. But there's a little bit more planning there. But that 3 to 4 month mark is really important too, because if we are talking about these deficiencies, whether that be B12 or iron or something that's super important for a baby, you're giving people the time not only to work on their egg and sperm quality, but get their nutrient load up too if they do get pregnant. It's just so important. So can you tell me a little bit more about the research on alcohol and marijuana and what you see and how it impacts sperm quality, and tobacco too?
Yes. So all of them impact sperm count and morphology. So morphology is the shape of the sperm, and we don't want sperm with 2 heads or 2 tails. It's harder for them to swim to the egg. They're less likely to fertilize that egg. So we want them kind of streamlined, little sperms to be able to swim their way up and fertilize that egg. And the count is big too, even though it takes 1 sperm to do the job. We need a high enough count just because a lot of them get lost and don't make it on the journey to fertilize that egg. But so as far as alcohol goes, the research shows limiting alcohol as much as possible is beneficial. It doesn't show that you have to totally eliminate it to boost counts, but depending on where you're starting, eliminating it for a time period, if you're really serious about conceiving in the next 3 to 4 months, can make all of the difference. So for men, I generally, if we have a sperm analysis and we see everything's looking pretty good, I still encourage them to limit it to roughly 4 to 5 drinks a week.
People can do that. Come on.
Yeah.
You're not telling them it's off the table. And 4 to 5 is pretty liberal. I mean, come on. You can have a couple nights where they can have a couple drinks. And I realize I'm married to Be Bad by Chris, and he loves his IPAs and his wine and all the things. But it's a finite amount of time, and you still get to have your fun. And if anything, it's like helping you prepare for baby, because how are you going to function on multiple drinks a night when you're waking up multiple times a night? Like that's hard on anybody.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it encourages them to try to manage stress in a different way too. Because a lot of people are using or alcohol for that kind of wind down period. And so incorporating some different types of stress management, like maybe you're going for a walk or you're increasing exercise, which is going to definitely help. But we know that alcohol puts a burden on our whole detox system. And so it's basically stealing nutrients away from your body that it needs to support fertility and things like both egg quality and sperm quality. So our liver really, really needs a lot of nutrients, including those fertility favorite nutrients like B12 and choline and B6 to get those toxins out of our bodies. So when we're talking about alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, whatever it might be, those are toxins that our body has to get rid of, and they're very nutrient dependent. And when we're stealing those nutrients away from our reproductive system, you're just not benefiting your reproduction, obviously. And also, yeah. So, and those nutrients are super significant in literally programming the DNA for the sperm and the egg. So you don't want those stolen away when you're planning to conceive, and even when you're not planning to conceive, because like you said, people get pregnant accidentally all of the time. So being mindful of how you're supporting your body, nourishing your body is really important.
It's funny because I have clients who take their prenatal prior to conception, and then they take it maybe through breastfeeding, and then they stop taking it. They're like, well, my hair and my skin and my nails were awesome when I was on my prenatal, or when I was in this period of time. And I look at it and I go, you cared about your food. You were taking a little multivitamin as insurance. You weren't drinking alcohol. You were going to bed because you were afraid you're going to be woken up in the middle of the night. Like your whole life changes, and you take a little bit better care of yourself, and you feel those benefits for sure. Right. So So is what the male should be doing the same as what the female should be doing for egg quality, or what are your tips there?
Essentially, yes, essentially the same. So females kind of have a really helpful, um, I guess, way to monitor their health with our cycle every month. So even though you might not think that it's helpful, any signs and symptoms that are coming with your cycle, your ovulation, your luteal phase, which is the phase from ovulation to your period, is really, really helpful for kind of checking in with what's going on with your body and where your body might need support. So with every couple that I work with, we talk a lot about individualizing, their nutrition plan and their lifestyle to fit their life and hopefully make it very realistic for them to sustain long term, because you're going to need all of these things to recover postpartum and definitely take you through pregnancy to support that tiny human that you're growing. But essentially, yeah, we're talking about, of course, starting with the gut health, we're talking about hormone balance too, and whatever might be going on with their cycle kind of steers us in the direction of how we're going to support their body, or really like what their body is telling us it needs to support fertility.
What are some little red flags or like little information? It's almost like you're looking for information symptoms that you're like, wait, if you have this, that's telling me that, and it means this. Can you give me a couple of examples?
Yeah. So if your cycle is less than 21 days, we're questioning whether you're ovulating at all. And if you are ovulating, which we can determine by things like cervical mucus and body temperature, then we look at that luteal phase. So that phase after ovulation is the phase that we're supposed to be releasing progesterone. And that's all about how healthy that follicle was as it grew. So over that 90-day period, that 3 to 4 months before ovulation, we're kind of nourishing that follicle, and that follicle is going to turn into what we call a corpus luteum that's going to be secreting progesterone. And if that progesterone is not secreted, that phase after ovulation is going to be short. You might have spotting, like brown spotting or spotting days before your actual full flow starts. And those are signs that progesterone's low, and it's going to be really hard for your body to support pregnancy, because that's when implantation happens. We need enough progesterone to gestate that fertilized egg and support it through those early weeks of pregnancy, because progesterone is carried by your body and really that corpus luteum until like the placenta can start to develop and start creating progesterone, more progesterone for you and the baby. So those are a couple of signs. If your cycle's longer than 35 days, your body's having trouble ovulating. You're probably ovulating. It's not guaranteed, but there's some sort of stress in the body that is leading it to elongate the cycle. Stress can definitely be external, so work life stress, or internal, like you're not eating enough or your body's not getting the nutritional support that it needs to support detox. Gut health is poor, so you're not absorbing the nutrients and energy that you need to support ovulation, regular ovulation anyways. And then symptoms like pain, heavy periods, big clots, those are all red flags as well. So if we're talking about ovulation barriers, whether it's no ovulation or trouble ovulating, we always look at amount of food, whether you're getting enough protein, enough fat. Fiber is important too, because that hormone balance is essential, and we actually eliminate things like estrogen in our stool. So if we're not having a bowel movement every single day, it's a problem for hormone balance, and therefore a problem for how our hormones are cycling and supporting ovulation. So amount of food is huge. Women that are supporting fertility and having trouble with ovulation have to have enough carbohydrate. And I see that we need at least 150 grams of carbs a day. If you are not ovulating regularly, it could be more than that to get things back on track. So, I mean, carbs doesn't have to be those croissants and bagels. And I don't recommend that they are, but we're talking about things like beans and berries and starchy veggies, which are also going to give you the prebiotics that are good for gut health too. Yeah. And if we're talking about progesterone, we're looking at nutrient rich foods with things like B6 and zinc, nuts and seeds and poultry and stuff like that. So that's going to help with progesterone. But yeah, those are a few. I could go on and on.
I love it. No, I love that you're touching on under eating, because it's something that it is a stressor on the body. And if your body isn't feeling fed and fueled, then it's not going to be in a place to say, let's carry a baby right now. And I also love that you clarified your carbohydrate recommendation to be all of the produce that you're talking about, because I think it looks very different when you look at the macronutrient quality and how that affects gut health when we're talking about refined acellular carbohydrates versus really fiber-rich, colorful, antioxidant-rich, water-rich fruits and veggies, because the net carbohydrates on those and how you're incorporating them into your meals is completely different than just saying like, oh, I need to get 150 carbohydrates in to increase my fertility or to get my, cycle back on track, or for my body not to think I'm starving it. It's a totally different message. And I love that you clarified that, because food is information and it feeds our gut and it makes us happy. And yeah, it is definitely really important. So I love that.
Yeah, definitely. And another note on carbohydrates is that blood sugar balance is so important for fertility and hormone balance, and just telling our body that it's safe and in a place that it's safe to reproduce. And that carbohydrates we need them, but we also need them in balance. And that's where that complex carbohydrate comes in, like Kelly was talking about with the beans and the starchy veggies and the fruits. So those are higher in fiber. So it's a little bit more balanced than having, say, a bagel, which spike that blood sugar and tell the body that it's not safe. But if we add the fiber-rich carbohydrates alongside protein and fat, really, we're going to have the happiest hormones and sending our body the message that it is safe to ovulate, because it's getting the energy it needs and it's supporting the hormones that we need to ovulate.
I love it. I mean, you make it seem so simple, because it really is about like nourishing your body with those whole foods, using whole foods first, identifying any issues, whether that's gut health related or thyroid related or under eating or whatever, but then also taking into account, well, what are some productive things that you can do without saying like, this is off limits and that's off limits, but saying like, hey, like you really should pull back on the alcohol, the weed, the tobacco, like things that are having an effect on liver and detoxification. I'm curious in your practice if there are anything outside of, say, the typical quote unquote, like I want to say like easy to access toxins of like alcohol on your liver that people would be surprised to learn actually are nutrient depleters of the liver to metabolize, like any over-the-counter medications or anything that you see that you're looking for that you like your clients to pull back on or try to take a break from?
Yeah. So essentially, like any medication that you're on can create barriers. So like we look at what medication you're on. Of course, if it's medically necessary, we're going to keep it in there and kind of supplement accordingly as we need to. Other toxins are really like personal care products and cleaning products that are most top of mind for me because we definitely cover those in my programs. So we're talking about chemicals that are going to be kind of absorbed through your skin, whether it's makeup or lotions, soap, anything that you're putting on your body that's heavily laden in fragrance, it can potentially be a pretty big toxin that is definitely weighing on your toxic burden, which is what I call it. It's overloading your liver. It's making it harder for that liver to just get really do everyday things that it needs to do to filter through things through your body, and definitely stealing nutrients from your fertility. So phthalates and phytates in those things are big ones that we talk about. As far as medication goes, a really big one that I come across is like allergy medication. It actually influences your cervical mucus too. So it's also a burden on the liver, but kind of a more obvious one that you would actually see is that it can decrease cervical mucus in really big ways. And that cervical mucus is in females is what helps protect the sperm, keep it alive for up to 5 days, and actually changes the sperm in a way, it prepares the sperm in a way that gets it ready for fertilizing the egg. Helps it swim too. It's kind of amazing. Has channels. So, anyways, as far as medication goes, it can influence our fertility in a wide variety of ways that we might not be thinking of. So I'm always looking at medications and seeing, what we can treat in a different way. And allergy medications is often one that we can use alternatives for.
Definitely. What are some of I love that you brought that up because I feel like that's something that people are popping over the counter when they're just like, oh, I kind of feel congested. I'll just take Zyrtec or Claritin, or I've been taking Zyrtec or Claritin because an allergist 10 years ago told me that I had allergies. So this is still what I do. But now I live in a completely different place and I still take this medication. It's just important that you brought that up because that's something that I see clients self-dose and diagnose and self-dose. So it's around, and it makes perfect sense that it would affect mucus in other places. And especially if it's our super highway to the egg, let's not impact that.
Exactly. Yeah. So we talk about, whether it's actually necessary, just as you mentioned, like, are you still in the environment that you were when you started taking the allergy medication? And then some people haven't trialed off of it in some time. Like you said, they just start getting kind of snuffly around a certain season and start taking it. But it could be a million other things, So it could be dust in your house, and there's ways to eliminate or decrease, not totally eliminate, of course, but kind of improve the air quality in your home. Air things out. That can help a lot. Clean things that we don't really think about cleaning as often, especially where we're sleeping. And then just gut health in general. So anytime that there's a dysbiosis happening in the body, anytime the immune system is unhappy, we're creating inflammation, and it can lead to symptoms that seem kind of random and unconnected. But a lot of times if we support that immune system from a gut health standpoint, we see really big symptom changes in other places, including things like allergy symptoms, or what were thought of as allergy symptoms.
So we're airing out our house, getting air purifiers, checking in with ourselves, trying to titrate off our OTC medications to make sure that our cervical mucus is ready to rock and roll for baby. It's good stuff like that where someone who's tuning in might be like, wait, I take Claritin every day. I have never tried this. Maybe this is impacting this. Okay, I'm trying to think if there are any other questions top of mind that I have before I want you to go into your personal story, if you don't mind sharing. I think let's just go there. So let's just do it. What why do you feel so connected to being a fertility dietitian?
Yes. So, my personal health journey really started when I was a teenager. So I was having all sorts of symptoms. I should back up. As a teenager, so I was having lots of GI type symptoms. I would go back and forth from constipation to diarrhea, constant stomach cramps, really fatigued, headache, hair loss, you name it, all of these things. So I of course started with my family doctor, checking in. They thought I was just a normal teenager going through some changes, hormonal changes, put me on hormonal birth control, and kind of let me go. So I pretty much went through high school like that. In college, I became more miserable, started wanting to dig into my own health a little bit more. I was actually started taking a nutrition class at the time, and became super, super interested in nutrition. So I started playing around with my diet. And decided to go see a naturopath doctor who helped me with some different types of testing. She kind of questioned hormonal birth control, which come to learn now was actually making all of my symptoms worse. Hormonal birth control, for those of you that don't know, does deplete nutrients, and it's great if you are informed and taking it. It's an awesome tool, but I encourage you to be well informed about the side effects for it, because it can cover things up and influence hormones in very negative ways. And that was very true for me. So I came off of hormonal birth control. She helped me with testing. Turns out that I was celiac. That's where my GI symptoms were coming from. So really, like all of my life, and it got a lot worse as a teenager, likely because of the hormone changes that naturally come at that time. But I was celiac, so cutting out gluten was a huge lifestyle change for me. I actually grew up on a wheat farm. So, yeah, a very interesting connection there.
Wow.
Huge lifestyle change. I grew up helping with wheat harvest. And so I can't do that anymore. I'm very, very sensitive now that I did cut it out, and my immune system kind of healed and my gut health has improved. Now, if I come into contact, whether topically or ingest gluten, it's a huge setback for me. But my health is so much better now that I know that for sure. So celiac and also Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So hypothyroidism that is has an immune system component to it. So both of those, celiac and Hashimoto's, are connected to the immune system. So lots of immune system work. So I went through college. I was feeling a lot better having these diagnoses. I decided to further my education in nutrition, kind of from those things, and taking that nutrition course in undergrad. And so I went on to get my master's in nutrition. And there I dove even deeper into things like gut health and hormones and how they're connected, which helped me further on my journey to regulate my cycle. I had a super, super irregular cycle, likely because of stress and blood sugar imbalance. I'm not pre-diabetic and I don't have like insulin resistance on labs, but as we know, blood sugar balance in general is really important for overall hormone balance and health. And so in order to get ovulation happening regularly, we need to eat in a pattern that is balanced and has those fertility-friendly carbohydrates. So our berries and our starchy veggies versus our, white breads and cake and cookies type carbs, which definitely as a teenager, I was eating a whole lot of for sure. And early college, like absolutely, like quite like that.
I was going to say, says the wheat farmer's daughter.
Yes.
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that kind of led me to continue to pursue all the connections. And as I was going through my dietetic internship and finishing up my master's, I came across some fertility dietitians or women that actually are specializing in that area, which led me to like become even more fascinated about the topic of egg quality and sperm quality and how like what we eat plays such a major role in not only being able to get pregnant, but also the health of our pregnancy and the health of our baby. And there's really no turning back. Like I'm still like get super excited to continue learning about these topics. And diving into the new research that comes out all of the time. But all of that has since helped me prepare my body for conception or when my husband and I were ready to start trying for a family. And I absolutely did all of the testing like a year before we knew we wanted to start trying just to make sure I had everything on track. And I, even though I had the background and I was already like working in this space, I had quite a bit of work to do still with my gut. And likely a lot of that was due to my poor sleep quality and pretty poor stress management at the time. Like my diet looked pretty good. I made a few, I would say upgrades when I decided to start on that path preconception journey, which was a year before starting to try to conceive. And I would say like adding more fatty fish and increasing liver and things like that in my diet, just being more mindful of those types of foods in my diet. But as far as my gut health, like I had some more healing to do there and rebalancing to do there, which made all of the difference in my cycle again. Like even though it was pretty regular, I saw improvements in things like cervical mucus, and just overall mood throughout my cycle, which is a definite sign that your hormone balance is improving as well. So I could go probably more in depth on my personal story, but that's kind of the gist of it.
No, I love it. I think you're treating yourself like a little bit of a lab rat and you're being proactive. And I think also knowing that you have not only an autoimmune disease and celiac, but you're dealing with a thyroid issue, which we already know thyroid affects our ability to get pregnant and our ability to stay pregnant. And you're having an autoimmune component of low thyroid with Hashimoto's. So I think probably knowing that you had a lot of work to do, or you were coming from a place of already being a little bit behind. And I can resonate, that resonates with me. I'm celiac. And so just knowing that there's healing that needs to be done, you take it a little bit more seriously. It's the silver lining of the diagnosis for you, multiple, which is great. But I'm curious what some of the upgrades were that you made to heal your gut. It sounds like you added the fatty fish in and you added the liver in. Food wise, what were you doing for gut health specifically?
Yeah, so I added in a prebiotic supplement actually, as I was I don't still have it in because I retested and decided to go like whole food for maintenance. But at the time I added in sun fiber, which is a very specific like prebiotic food that's going to help feed that normal bacteria in the gut. And I really needed a boost in normal bacteria to help support the decrease of opportunistic bacteria as well. I added in or took a course of oregano oil during that time, which is the antimicrobial, and berberine, which they kind of work together as antimicrobials. I don't recommend buying and dosing those yourself for dysbiosis unless you have testing and are working with somebody, because they can actually kill everything too, which is not what we want. So it's a lot about balance there as well. So I did that. I increased my fiber even more from food too. So that wasn't only part of the healing phase, that's definitely part of the maintenance phase. So things like ground flaxseed, seeds in general, pumpkin seeds, and fibrous foods like our prebiotic fibrous foods like bananas that are on the green side, onions, garlic, those are good prebiotic foods. Definitely upping berries for fiber as well as all the vegetables. So definitely greens, but all colors of veggies too, just for the antioxidant purposes, as well as the different types of fibers in all of those veggies too.
I love it. That's great. No, I think everyone, and just like probably all the clients you see, everyone's a little bit of a different case. You may see deficiencies, you may see dysbiosis, you may see thyroid issues, you may see autoimmune components, but they're all telling us something about what's going on in our body. And we are lucky to have our menstrual period as an obvious place to go look for issues, but it's definitely about going a little bit deeper, especially if you find that you're having issues. And I love that this is just an alternative resource for people who have maybe tried to get pregnant for 6 months or 8 months or a year, and they're finally, very probably at that point pretty frustrated, and they don't understand why, and they're, this is not something that they're talking about with their OBGYN. And at this point, they're probably looking at fertility specialists and what else they could be doing. IUIs, IVF, certain pharmaceuticals. There's thankfully for women who have a hard time getting pregnant, there are options if you want to go that path. But I love that you are just working with so many women to help them make these tiny humans and to uncover these issues. And you do it via online courses and classes as well, correct?
I do. Yeah. Everything I do is virtual. So I have a group program that is 100% online. And then my one-on-one work is also 100% online. So one-on-one videos with people, really, it's like Zoom, but HIPAA compliant and in a platform that I use. And then with the group program where we're meeting as a group too for Q&A every week. So that's all virtual. Even pre-COVID, it was all virtual. So
look at you ahead of the game. Yeah. I love it. Well, I love everything that you're putting out there on the internet. It really, really just preach balance and uncovering those things that we may not be aware are affecting our fertility. So I appreciate your passion, Brooke, and just like all that you do to share. I'm so happy for you and your husband and your brand new baby girl. So thank you for taking time outside of your maternity leave to join me and say hello and really share this information, because I know what a joy, just like you, it is to have a kid. And if someone wants one, we want to help them get preggo.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been so fun talking to you. And thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you, your website, your offerings, your Instagram, all that stuff, so that we can throw that in the show notes too and link to everything.
Awesome. So you can find me on Instagram at the.fertility.dietitian. So I try to share a lot of info there. My website is www.brookebnutrition.com. So you can read a little bit more about my programs there. I currently have a wait list. So I'll be launching both my group program and onboarding one-on-one clients in January of 2021. So jump on my wait list if you're interested. It's pretty full, so definitely get on there. I'll be reaching out to the entire wait list to see if you're interested in, say, the group program or one-on-one. So you get the option of either jumping into the group program right away in 2021, or if you want to hold on and wait for one-on-one, we can do that. So that's where you can find me. Really, all of the information is either in my IG or Instagram profile or on my website. come follow me. And I would love to see you on my wait list too.
Yeah, I'm sure you will have a number of ladies coming your way. And again, I really appreciate your time. We'll make sure all your links are in the show notes and that we get this out there so that, like I said, anyone who wants to have a baby can hopefully use all of your tips to get there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And congrats to you too on your newest edition coming so soon.
Thanks, Brooke.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at bewellbykelly.com and follow me on Instagram at bewellbykelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.